Hello travelers, Boardman21 here today, and by request I have another build for you. Now, I was recently asked by Genocide on YouTube if 𝐒𝐭𝐴 was still a thing, and the majority of the problems that I found whenever I looked up guides from recent 𝐒𝐴 was that the rage was unsustainable. You could not stay in werebear form, so I set myself out on a mission to find out if it was possible to do it, and I tried everything. We did the healing totems with the Thorn totem tree, trying to get the mana back, but that synergy does not work. We tried the vines, but unfortunately vines don't give you rage just based on them being there and on death. Instead, they actually have to hit enemies, so unless you're in packs of enemies or staying on top of the same enemy, hitting them with the vines getting hits, which only have a % chance to give you rage back, you're not going to get it. And there's no items that give you rage every few seconds like Quiet's Belt for the Legacy of Forest for the Spriggan. So after trying all of the attempts to possibly have any form of rage management, which also included using your swipe ability to try and get it back on crits, it just didn't seem like it was possible. 𝐒𝐴 was consuming way too much rage. So I know the other two forms can have unlimited rage, so I was like, what would be better, playing it on Swarmblade or playing it on the Spriggan? And I found that playing it on the Spriggan was actually really good. It has a ton of synergies. Now I want to remind you that no matter which build you played on, 𝐒𝐴 basically has a 5-second cooldown. Because of Boulder's Wrath, the two-handed mace unique that you have to use to proc, it has a 5-second cooldown. So we just need a movement ability that we can use every 5 seconds. And with the Spriggan, you have the ring that allows you to do summon vines. It actually teleports you to wherever you're summoning the vines. And you can get that down to a 5-second cooldown and proc 𝐒𝐴 with it. Now, the good synergies that you have while you're in Spriggan form is that you have unlimited rage. There are so many ways to get rage while in Spriggan form that it's so unfair compared to werebear that it makes it very viable. On top of that, I feel like you're almost tankier in Spriggan form than you are in werebear form. And we'll cover this more in depth in the skills, but in short, you're able to use Thorn Shield, which gives you flat armor and increased armor, as well as just being in Spriggan form gives you flat armor and increased armor. And Thorn Shield, just using Thorn Shield, also procs Eterra's Blessing, which can also proc a healing totem. So you're getting tons of heals, you're getting tons of armor, and you're getting all that just by using Thorn Shield, which you can use in the downtime that you're waiting for the Summon Vines cooldown to replenish so that you can then proc 𝐒𝐴 again. You can see in the gameplay right now I'm doing a tier 4 jeweler. Obviously, if you're waiting every 5 seconds for 𝐒𝐴, it's not the most damaging build in the game, but 𝐒𝐴 does hit like a rock. And I don't have 100% crit in this build, so you can definitely get a little bit more damage out of it. But we are super tanky. I'm literally running circles around tier 4 jeweler, as you can see in the gameplay, literally running in a circle, waiting for that cooldown, hitting it. In between the cooldowns, we do one Thorn Shield, which gives us a ton of armor. It also heals us because Eterra's Blessing is procced. And then we're getting our unlimited rage because we also just summon our healing totems, which instead of healing us or giving us rage every time they would heal, which just keeps you at full rage. You can see I'm never going to go back in human form like you would be with the druid werebear. Instead, we're going to be the druid Spriggan. So let's go ahead and dive into the skills and just how this build works, because it is very tanky and it can do the end game with absolute ease, even if it will be a little bit slower on the DPS side. For skills, I'm running Spriggan Form, 𝐒𝐴, Summon Thorn Totem, Ice Thorns, and Eterra's Blessing. For Spriggan form, we have this set up so that the healing totems that we will summon will give us rage instead of healing us, and then we have a ton of armor as well as a ton of armor increase through the use of Thorn Shield. So we got 4 points in Totem Warden, 2 points in Guardian of Nature, 1 point in Ire of Trees. This will give us rage gain on heal of a +5 instead of getting healed. Remember, this rage actually will scale with healing effectiveness as well. So the more healing you have, the more rage you'll get for each heal, and this also scales with the number of totems, so you will want to run 3 totems instead of 1, and that's why we have 1 point in spiked totems as well as 1 point in unbound garden for that additional maximum totem, as well as it will always summon 3 at once. So when all 3 hit you, they'll heal you for a minimum of 15 rage because each one's giving you 5, and that will scale with healing effectiveness, which will be really nice. The 1 point spike totem will make it scale with the benefits of healing totems with the Thorn totem skill tree. So with that, we'll be able to build into the Thorn totems and make it do some other other stuff as well. We've got 5 points in Iron Bark so that we get flat armor and increased armor. That's in part with the fact that Spriggan Form itself gives you 300 flat armor. So with this node and just being in Spriggan Form, you're actually getting 750 armor just for being in it, which is huge. Then we got 3 points in Deep Roots for Thorn Shield duration. Thorn Shield itself is going to give us flat and increased armor. With Eterra's Bulwark, we get flat armor and increased armor with shield. Don't be confused. That says with shield as if you're wearing a shield. That's just with Thorn Shield. So every time you use Thorn Shield, you're going to get 40 flat armor as well as 6% increased armor. You don't have to be wearing a shield for that. And then 1 point in Introspection, Thorn Shield can only target us, which is really nice, so that when we spam it, we don't have to worry about accidentally hitting allies with it. It's always going to focus on us, and then I'll get into how it procs through Eterra's Blessing to heal us as well. For Earthquake, we have this set up to basically do as much damage as possible. You can get more points for the tree, and if you do, I'll show you where to put them just to do a little bit more damage with it. But we got 4 points in Rupture for that initial hit damage, 1 point in Seismic Smash so that we no longer do Aftershocks, but the Aftershock damage that would have occurred is now the initial hit damage, which is what we're after. And with 1 point in Seismic Tide, we now do 3 initial hits. This gives it a cooldown, but that's bypassed through Boulder's Wrath, so we don't even have to worry about the cooldown, but it does consume mana per initial hit. But again, we have basically unlimited rage in this build, and that's why we're doing it in Spriggan and not Werebear. 3 points in Crushing Wave gives Aftershock 60% damage. Remember, we converted Aftershock damage into the initial hit damage, so that's actually 60% more damage for us. 1 point in Upheaval changes Aftershock hits to damage over time. We ignored that so that we can put the 2 points in Unabating for another 50% Aftershock damage, which again is just the initial hit. So that's huge. And this node here, don't worry, it doesn't convert the initial hit into damage over time. So we only take that node to unlock the Unabating. If you have 24 points for Earthquake, if you have a tier 7 for the plus level, throw more in here, you're going to get another 50% damage out of it. Then we got 2 points in Concussion for the initial hit damage, 3 points in Outbreak for all of that area, and 5 points in Shatterquake for another 150% more hit damage with it against chilled enemies, which we get chill on hit just through our passives. So you're going to be able to put that on an enemy, which is really nice and allow you to get some really big hits. For Summon Thorn Totem, we are spec'd into this because our healing totems will use its tree, and we just want to get mana back out of it. You can get a little bit of damage. There's not too much to do with it. There's nothing that's going to give you armor or make it target you to give you any sort of buff. It's not going to do a ton of damage for you because we're not built into minion damage, but it does allow you to get rage back when they disappear. So with 2 points in Totem Wisdom and 3 points in Memories of Eterra, we can get some mana back, or in our case rage, because we're transformed, which is really beneficial for the build. So you can put your healing totems out there, they heal you, which actually gives you rage back, and when they disappear, they're going to give you even more rage back, which is really nice. Then we got 5 points in Venom Tipped Thorns, 1 point in Pillars of Harrowit, and 1 point in Frost Attunement. The reason for all of this is so that we have a chance for Frostbite instead of Poison. That's why we converted it to Cold. It'd be cool if it would chill for us, because chill would then allow us for Earthquake to get its 150% bonus right off the bat, but it doesn't do that. Really, you can put the points anywhere in the tree that you want. The main thing you're worried about is the Memories of Eterra. My last points go into Winterwood for some spell cold damage, 2 points in On the Austral Winds for some spell damage form, and Torrent of Thorns with that last point. For Ice Thorns, we built into this because it can proc when we get hit, since you can't use a lot of these normal skills while you're transformed. So we got 3 points in Dagger Thorns, 2 points in Bramble Armor so that there's a chance for Ice Thorns to cast when we're hit, 4 points in Spell Thorns raises that from 20% to 40%. The reason we want this to proc when we get hit is for the 1 point in Affiliate, and then the 1 point in Thornbearer is to give us that armor. Now, when it does proc that, there is a 40% chance with the 4 points in Bulb Shield for it to proc basically twice for us, which is nice. 4 points in Bark Shield increases that armor from the 40 here to another 80, so we get 120 flat armor every time it actually procs. And 1 point in Emblem of Might, because we are wearing a two-handed weapon, means that it doesn't cost any mana, so it's not going to cost any rage when it's proccing. Then for Eterra's Blessing, we're speccing to this because we can have it proc every time that we use Thorn Shield. So 5 points into conservation for that mana efficiency because it does have a rage cost. 1 point in Rose Bloom makes it cast on Thorn Shield use. So whenever you're in between earthquakes and your life is starting to get low, you can increase your armor and get yourself healed just by spamming Thorn Shield. Because Thorn Shield will then proc Eterra's Blessing. Eterra's Blessing will then give us a ton of healing. We have Improved Blessing for 100% increase. 1 point in Purge will cleanse the ailments off of us, so Thorn Shield will also cleanse the ailments as well as heal you. 3 points in Ancestral Renewal will then proc a Healing Totem. Unfortunately, this Healing Totem does not use the Healing Totem skill tree in Spriggan Form, so this Healing Totem will actually heal you. It's not going to give you Rage back, and it's not going to use the Thorn Totem tree. I'm not sure if that's intended or not. I kind of hated for that to happen because it would have been nice to never actually have to use Healing Totems in Spriggan Form and just use Thorn Shield to have them procced, but you get what you can. And then the last 5 points in Safeguard for the Elemental Resist and Poison Resist, so you can be capped on those if you're casting this once every 4 seconds, which is really easy to do because you can only cast the Summon Vines for Earthquake once every 5 seconds. The other 4 seconds, you got plenty of stuff to do. Casting Thorn Shield just once in that time frame every time is not hard to do. It's a really nice cycle that you can do. For passives, we got 25 points in the Primalist base class, with 6 points in Gift of the Wilderness for that increased health, 8 points in Natural Attunement for that attunement. You can definitely switch this and put them over in Primal Strength for Strength instead. Strength points will give you increased armor in Spriggan Form, which is really nice. We have 5 points in Hunter's Restoration so that we have increased health. We also get some health restored every time that we do a hit on an enemy, once every 3 seconds, which we'll be doing when we do Earthquake. And then 5 points in Berserker so that we, at low life, will take less damage as well as do more melee damage. So at low life, which sometimes you can just let enemies hit you, get you to low life, and then you can use Summon Vines, which will proc Earthquake, and it will do 100% double damage, which is pretty nice. You are so tanky at low life with Endurance and the Berserker node that you can actually let yourself be down there, and then of course you're going to leech it all back once you do the hit. For Shaman, we have 15 points, and that's to unlock the Earthquake. 7 of those points in Shamanic Infusion, with 8 of them in Tempest Form. This also is where we get the chill chance on hit. We got 18 points in Beastmaster, mostly for all the damage reduction that you get, with 8 points in Nearsane Strength for the 16% less damage taken from nearby enemies. 5 points in Boarheart, 3 points in Porcine Constitution, and then 1 point in Savagery, as well as 1 point in Ambush. And then for the Druid, our Master class, we got 52 points, with 7 of them in Chitinous Plating for that Endurance and Flat Armor, 7 points in Primordial Resonance for that increased damage, 7 points in Druidic Prowess for the all attributes, which is nice. Also, the 7 strength is 7% increased armor for us. We got 5 points in Thicket of Thorns, so that there's a chance to cast Thorn Shields on us when we get hit. We also get increased armor out of this. Remember, when we get hit, there's a 40% chance for Ice Thorns and a 10% chance for Thorn Shield, both of which will give us flat armor, which is huge and why you're going to feel super, super tanky. We got 3 points in Wind of the Leaves. The third point is just so that we can proc that Spriggan Form movement speed, so we have 10% more movement speed. 8 points in Harmonious Wisdom. This is just for a little extra crit avoidance since we do have some attunement in this build. 8 points in Aspects of the Might for that strength. Also, while we are in Spriggan Form, we get increased armor based on strength. We have 49 points of strength, so that means that we get 49% increased armor in this build. And the last 7 points in Hideskin for that flat health, as well as our maximum health is gained as Endurance Threshold. That's 7%, so the more health you have, the more Endurance Threshold you will have. And then for the character sheet, you can see we are almost capped on all of the resistance, just a little shy on Necrotic. Fire, of course, when I use the Thorn Shield, is going to be completely covered, so not too worried about that. A slightly better roll would have got me all the Necrotic I needed. Now for armor, you can see that we are sitting at 74% armor without doing anything. And there are ways, I don't even have the blessings for armor. You can definitely get more armor, but when I do use Thorn Shield, I get that flat and increased amount, so you can literally spam this and you can see we have tons of armor. You can get up to that 80% armor. It is definitely possible. When you get hit, these will also be proccing. Ice Thorns, flat armor will be proccing, so you can have up to 80% armor, which is huge and going to make you feel super, super tanky. And then for defense, get that endurance up, and of course your critical strike strike avoidance. For damage types, you want fire damage and you want melee damage. That's really what you're going after. In this build, you can see I only have a 65% chance to crit. Of course, if you get that to 100%, you're guaranteeing that Earthquake is going to crit on all 3 hits, which will definitely be a big boost of damage for you. I didn't put too much critical strike avoidance on my gear. You can definitely get that up much easier. For the inventory and for blessings, there are a few things that you need for this build to work. Number 1, you're going to need a 𝐒𝐿𝐷 font. This is what gives you a movement ability in Spriggan Form. Without this ring, you will not be able to even proc Earthquake. So make sure that you have this ring before you even try this build. After that, everything else is completely optional. You do not have to have Legacy of the Quiet Force. Even though that rage gained every 3 seconds while in Spriggan Form is nice, you can get it from the totems instead, so not needed. On this one, we did roll cooldown recovery. Remember, you do not want to get the cooldown of Summon Vines under 5 seconds, because with the Boulder's Wrath, you can only proc Earthquake once every 5 seconds. So if you get cooldown on your boots and on your belt and while transformed on the helm, it's going to get that cooldown under 5 seconds, and then sometimes when you use it, you won't actually be proccing Earthquake. So don't even worry about getting that much cooldown reduction. You don't need too much. That brings us to the unique, which you can farm on the Spirits of Fire timeline. Just on the normal mode, it has a 50% chance of dropping. Getting added melee critical strike chance to it is pretty important for the build. Getting a 1 LP of these is not too difficult. You can definitely do it. It will take a little bit of farming, and you're probably going to want a few of them to try and roll that tier 6, tier 7 melee critical strike chance on it, because with that, that's what's going to allow you to get really close to 100% crit with Earthquake. Your damage will be much lower with it. If you have a 2 LP, that's awesome. Try and get a bunch of melee fire damage added as well. That would be huge for the build. We're also running a Titan Heart. Again, the chest is completely optional. You could do a Wings of Argentus, which will give you a plus couple of levels for Earthquake as well. You could just run a normal chest that has like increased crit multi while transformed, or increased cooldown while transformed. Actually, I think that only goes on helm, but you could run more health. You can do whatever. I went with the Titan Heart because we are wearing a two-hander. This gives us some extra DR, and it had a ton of life on it as well as increased melee damage. Not much, but a little extra to help. After that, just get your resistance, get some critical strike avoidance, get as much health as you can, get some leech, and get as much critical strike multiplier as you can, as that's really going to help the build, especially if you have 100% crit. The more crit multi you have is really going to benefit the build. For idols, I just went with as much health idols as you can to really up my EHP. Again, there's other things you can go for instead of hybrid health idols. You can get crit multi while transformed, and I think you can also get critical strike chance. I'm not 100% on that, but there's some other things that you can do that'll just give you more damage. I went with health just so I could run circles and be hit by all the abilities of 𝐒𝐿𝐷 and not worry about dying and not even be able to look at the screen and kill her blindfolded, basically. So that'll be it there. For blessings, I don't have the correct blessings. I definitely would like to change the increased physical damage to critical strike avoidance, and then of course I can change my endurance as well as my chance to apply frostbite on hit, which I don't need, to flat and increased armor, making me even tankier than we already are. I'll change all that in the build planner that I link before I run bosses and change it all on this character. And then for how to play this build, it is really easy. Really, it's just going to be a 3-button cycle. You're going to do Thorn Shield, then you're going to do Healing Totems, and then you'll do the Summon Vines in a 5-second rotation. So it doesn't have to be quick, but that's all you're going to do. Literally, I like to just have my Thorn Shield out. I have my Vines out, so they're going to give me my Rage back. And then you do the Summon Vines for your nice big hits. And again, while you're waiting for that 5.4 second cooldown, I just do the other 2 again. So you have your Thorn Shield, you have your Healing Totems, boom, you hit with the Earthquake. I can do some more Thorn Shields, I can lay out some more Totems, still waiting another Thorn Shield if I want, and throw out another one of those. And you can see it's critting for 250,000 damage on the 3rd hit, which is huge. You're getting those 3 hits, so you're doing 500,000 damage every time that you use against the training dummy. And of course at low life, that'll be doubled, which is really nice. So if you're taking some hits, you can let yourself do that. You know, don't heal yourself as much with Thorn Shield, and that's it. That's really all it is. You just keep running through the echoes, you group up the mobs, you hit them. Again, a little bit slower because you are waiting on that cooldown, but overall a really tanky build. And if you've been looking for something that keeps you in the form like the old Earthquake Werebear form did, this is the build for you. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave you guys with some gameplay. Let me know in the comments below how you like the build.